I love to travel and I'm always up for a new adventure. So I can see sights, take in the culture, and of course, all the flavors. But you know, there's something comforting about revisiting a place that I have found special. I find something deliciously compelling about the south of France, and I want to share my food travel diary with you. You know, there's a reason that artists like Van Gogh were drawn to the south of France. There's something about the light, and for me, there is something about the flavors. You can always count on fresh produce and a local focus and attention to quality ingredients. Now, whenever we go to the south of France, an important stop is to visit the beautiful town of Uzes in the Gard region. The reason we like to visit Uzes is because of the markets. The first thing we do is visit Boulangerie Provençale. That is specifically to pick up a croissant. They're freshly baked every day, all butter croissant. And it's crispy on the outside, but because it's warm, it's kind of soft and squishy and buttery on the inside. Oh, bonjour. That's gone in about 40 seconds, and we move along into the market. And the first thing you want to do is do a bit of a walkabout to check out the stalls. Now we regroup. So we'll sit at a cafe facing the market, have a coffee, talk through what we want to buy, and also the important discussion of lunch begins. After that, we do the loop around the market, make a few purchases, and before we head to lunch, well, I have to make a very important stop. My favorite patisserie is La Fougasse Patisserie, and I love to buy the classic French desserts, all individual. And that could be eclairs, mousse au chocolat, tarte aux framboises, opera, pavlova. I may switch up the desserts I choose to buy, but I will always buy a Paris-Brest. Now, this choux paste ring is filled typically with a hazelnut diplomat cream, Praliné hazelnuts, so you get a bit of a crunch in there, and it is so decadent and delicious. After lunch, we'll pull out the pastries, make a cup of coffee or tea, and just dive in. It really is such a treat to enjoy all of these pastries in the mid-afternoon. I mean, that's not something I would do every day at home. We're on vacation after all. And while all of these pastries are delicious, I am just drawn to that classic Paris-Brest. Oh, the memory of eating that Paris-Brest, I bring that home with me, and it just takes me to a happy place. So I can take myself to a happy place by recreating a lovely Paris-Brest with my own little twist. While a traditional Paris-Brest is a hazelnut flavor, I'm making mine with peanut butter. And it all starts with Praliné Peanuts. Now, a Paris-Brest has a crunch to it, and that comes from the praline or candied nuts. So the first thing I do is I pour my water into my pot, a little bit of lemon juice, and now just a bit of sugar. I'm not making peanut brittle. I just need a sheer coating of sugar to caramelize the peanuts. Without stirring, I'll bring this up to a boil over high heat. And additionally, I have my peanuts holding warm in a low temperature oven because adding cold nuts to the hot sugar can actually seize the sugar. Once your sugar reaches a boil, you want to use a thermometer and cook it until it's 240 degrees Fahrenheit. With only that little bit of sugar, it doesn't take long, and you don't want to stir it at this point. I'll add my peanuts and turn down the heat to medium. And now I keep stirring to coat the peanuts, and I stir until I see that the sugar turns a nice amber color. All right. And you want to have a baking tray ready so you can turn the nuts out onto it right away. I'll set these aside to cool, and now it's time to start on the pastry cream base for the Diplomat Cream. A Diplomat Cream is a derivative of a French pastry cream. That makes for something that is very mousse-like and has a structure, so it makes beautiful piping inside the Paris-Brest. First thing I'll do is add my sugar, and I'll add that to my pot along with my cornstarch. I give this a little whisk, and I'll measure 2 cups of cold milk into the pot. You always want to add cold liquids to a cornstarch. That way you prevent any lumps. And now when I make a French style of pastry cream, I actually like to add my egg yolks directly to the liquid before I start cooking it. I have 6 egg yolks here. And by the time my cornstarch comes up to a full simmer and thickens, well, my egg yolks are also cooked. Now, before I start cooking the pastry cream, I want to get my finishing steps ready. So the first thing I need to do is measure 60 grams of butter into a large bowl. What I'm going to do is pour the hot pastry cream into the bowl, and the butter will actually bring down the temperature of the pastry cream, stopping it from cooking. I also have my peanut butter ready, and I've softened 2 teaspoons of plain gelatin powder in cold water so that as soon as the pastry cream comes off the heat, I can add both those ingredients. The last thing I'll do is add my vanilla extract to the bowl with the butter. I don't cook the vanilla extract into the pastry cream because some of the flavor will cook away. It's better to add it at the very end. If I were cooking with a vanilla bean, well, that I would add to the liquid. Grab a strainer. And now it's time to cook up that pastry cream. I bring my pastry cream up to a full simmer, but on medium heat or just a little bit higher. And you want to whisk constantly. You don't have to whisk too quickly, but you do have to keep the pastry cream moving. You can tell that you're getting close when you start to see the bubbles on the surface begin to disappear. That means the pastry cream is thickening. When it starts to thicken, it happens quickly. And now this comes off the heat. And I pour it right through the strainer over the butter to stop the cooking. Straining is important just to make sure you have the smoothest pastry cream possible. Now I'll whisk in the butter and the vanilla until the butter has melted. While the pastry cream is still hot, I add my bloomed gelatin, and I'll stir that first until the gelatin has dissolved. You will see that as the gelatin dissolves in the pastry cream seems to get a little thinner in consistency, but once chilled, of course, it will set up. All right, and now I can add my peanut butter, and I'll whisk that in until it's dissolved. And that peanut butter just melts right in. There we go. Now I'll put a piece of plastic wrap directly on the surface of this pastry cream, and I want to cool it just to room temperature. So I just leave it on the counter, and it takes about 90 minutes. At that point, it'll be time to add the whipped cream. Now that my pastry cream with the gelatin and the peanut butter has cooled to just above room temperature, I can whip my cream up. It's up to you if you want to use a mixer or do this by hand. All right. Now it's time to fold it into that pastry cream base. I'll add the cream in 2 additions and fold in gently but quickly. And there we go. Now we officially have a diplomat cream. So I like to chill this for a minimum of 2 hours, but guess what? You can make this a full day ahead and it will hold its volume. So when it's time to assemble your Paris-Brest, you're all set. While the diplomat cream sets, well, now is time to make the heart of the Paris-Brest. Those bicycle wheel shaped choux pastry. That is the distinctive look of Paris-Brest, which gets its name from a bicycle race that happened around 1900 between Paris and going west to the coast to the city of Brest. A really long bike race, and the idea was, inspired by the race, a patisserie created this dessert to fuel our cyclists. Now, it's a bit more of an afternoon treat. So I already have my water measured into my pot. Additionally, I will add some milk. I do a combination of water and milk. The water helps really make a crisp pastry, and you do need a bit of milk for the tenderness and the flexibility of the dough. And at the same time, I'll add butter. I'll take this over to the stove and bring the milk, butter, and water up to a full simmer on medium to medium-high heat. While I'm bringing up the butter, water, and milk to a boil, I can add my little bit of sugar and salt. Like a lot of other pastry doughs, this is a neutral dough. It's not too sweet, it's not too savory. It sits in the middle. All right. Now that my liquids are simmering, it's time to add the flour all at once and then quickly start stirring. This is going to make a thick paste. You want to make sure all the flour is moistened. And we're cooking out the flour, letting it hydrate and developing the proteins. Once you see that paste pull away from the sides and bottom of the pot, then you know it's fully cooked. The next step is to blow off some of the steam from the choux paste. If your dough has too much moisture to it, you won't get that volume and lift of your choux paste or get a hollow center to it. So this takes about a minute on medium speed. Most of the steam has blown off, so now I can add my eggs. I've got 4 whole eggs and I've given them a little whisk. That way it's easier to add them a bit at a time to my choux paste. You may have to stop and scrape your bowl occasionally. All right. Now it's time to work with this pastry. Unlike pie dough, you don't make this ahead and chill it. We're going to use it right now. I'll pop the choux paste into a piping bag. I've fitted mine with a star tip. It's a nice flexible dough, making it easy to pipe. In order to get a perfect shape to your Paris-Brest, you want to trace circles using a magic marker, and you can use a cookie cutter. And I put the ink side down on my baking tray, and now it's time to pipe. Now, it takes more than just piping one ring around the line. So first, a ring following that line, and then the second piping is a ring around the inside of the first, and then lastly, a ring at the seam of the two, sitting on top, just like so. The last step is to give these a light brush with an egg wash. I've preheated my oven to 400 degrees. It takes a hot oven to really get that pastry to lift up and give it lots of volume. Ultimately, you want your choux pastry to be golden brown on the outside, but it needs a little chance to dry out on the inside. That way, it holds its volume, leaving lots of space for delicious filling. And look at these beautiful choux pastries, the classic Paris-Brest style. You can see how the hole fills in a little bit, which I like because it makes it easier to eat. Now what I've done after they've cooled is I split them in half. So I just use a bread knife and cut them horizontally. And now it's time to fill them. What I did was I gave my diplomat cream a good stir to soften it. It may seem counterintuitive, but it makes it easier to pipe and you'll get a smoother pipe. Oh, this peanut butter diplomat cream is just amazing. And now it's really up to you what style you'd like to pipe. And then for that necessary crunch, I took the Praliné Peanuts that have now set and gave them just a rough chop. Oh, just seeing these beauties just takes me right back to that time spent in the south of France. Oh, I can't wait another minute. That crisp, airy pastry, that creamy yet fluffy diplomat cream, and then the little crunch from the Praliné peanuts. This is such a special dessert. If you've been to France and enjoyed this dessert, I know you're going to want to dive into this recipe. And if you haven't, I hope I've inspired you to give this recipe a try, and I know you're going to be booking a flight to France before you know it. Please enjoy making this recipe and join me for another food travel diary.